Welcome back, passengers. This is your pilot speaking. I'm David Hensley, owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined tonight by my two co-pilots,
Cara Hayes,
Robert Bradford.
And you are listening to Long Walk Talks Lost. We are continuing our Lost 20-year retrospective, almost at the end. We've got 2 episodes to discuss, and then we've got 2 more, and then we will be done with all 6 seasons of Lost. But we're not there yet. We got 4 episodes left to discuss before we dive into 615 and 616. Robert, tell the listeners about our themed drink for these 2 episodes.
Since our first episode was Across the Sea, I made us all sea breezes. So it's kind of one of those classic, frequently a beach cocktail, vodka, cranberry juice, and a lime wedge, and a splash of grapefruit juice as well. My mistake, which I think bothered David less than it bothered me and Cara, I always get like the 100% pure cranberry juice, which is really tart. I need to just be like a cheap American and get like Ocean Spray or Juicy Juice cranberry, whatever. Get the stuff that's like 60% sugar. I feel like I probably would have enjoyed the drink more if I'd done that.
Sometimes I like my drinks to hurt. All right, we are going to kick off our discussion with episode 615, Across the Sea, which is a Jacob Man in Black episode. Robert, kick us off.
So we open with a shot on the water where there's a bunch of debris floating, and your immediate thought is, okay, so we're seeing the aftermath of the sub sinking in the previous episode that broke all of our hearts. And then you realize, wait a minute, there are wooden planks everywhere. What's going on with... Oh, because it's... this is taking place several thousand years before that submarine happened. It's just a different ship got wrecked near the island.
So, is it really that, long in the far back in the past?
I feel like they deliberately don't give you too much to situate it with, because the woman who washes the shore speaks Latin, and then we switch to English. Well, we'll talk about that later, but otherwise, yeah, it's hard to say exactly when. I feel like the other people that we eventually see on the island are deliberately not tied to a particular tribe. Like, the weapons have kind of a Bronze Age look to them, but...
They're wearing leather,
and
clearly they have boats. When did seafaring start?
Kind of depends where you are, because I think they, the
ancient Greeks were doing it.
Yeah, the Americas populated both through the land bridge, I think, but also Polynesian cultures that could make it across the ocean. And we also don't know where the island is at this point in time. It could, because it's in the Indian Ocean when the show starts, but it's, for all we know, hopped around. It could literally be in the Mediterranean right now.
It's definitely somewhere warm.
Yeah. This opening is a great bait and switch, though. I do love the very clear swerve there. And it's continuing a tradition that I never thought of until we were doing this rewatch, of following up a heart-wrenching episode with just a what the hell was that kind of episode. Fluff episode. Most famously, I remember how fucking mad we all got when they followed up Mr. Echo's 23rd Psalm with Kate's I Do. And we were like, what is this shit? And then they pulled it off on us at least one more time. I can't remember what the next time was. I think it was season 4. It was The Constant, followed by Juliet's affair with Ethan, or with Goodwin episode.
Oh, wow, yeah. I was trying to remember what the off episode was in season 4. There it is.
Yep. But anyway, I think we're going to circle back to that. We get a guest star.
Yes, so this woman who's been shipwrecked washes ashore. We realize that she's heavily pregnant. She wanders into the jungle and is greeted by a woman who is already there. My wife turned to me after these two exchanged a few lines and goes, she was kind of like Allison Janney. And I regret that my instinct was to immediately go, well, that is Allison Janney, because as David pointed out, it would have been really hilarious if we just kind of strung Gina along thinking it was just some other actress who happened to resemble her.
Well, it gets better than that, because what Gina said was, why does that look like Allison Janney? And you said, because it's Allison Janney.
Yes, TV's Allison Janney, who is coming into the big get as a guest star in the last few episodes, because she just finished her run on The West Wing, where I checked, she won 4 Emmys during that show's 7-year run, which richly deserved if you've ever watched the show. But this was kind of her, okay, what am I doing now that I'm kind of a TV queen? I like her a lot. When she's speaking the Latin early on, it's kind of awkward. I think it's a hard thing. She's a very modern actress and just the energy she has. So it took a minute for me to be like, okay, this is an ancient, timeless being that we're seeing. But I think she does a pretty good job here.
Yeah, and it is awfully nice of them, however, to switch from Latin to English for our benefit a few sentences into their conversation.
I don't know. I kind of like reading my television.
I definitely don't mind it, but, I mean, it saved Allison Janney and whoever that actress was from having to learn much more Latin.
I wonder if Daniel Day-Kim ever got annoyed that, like, he was the only actor whose character had to, like, when we flash back to Korea, you're speaking Korean. Like, Saeed got to speak English wherever he was. Like, everybody else gets to speak English, for the audience. But Daniel Day-Kim had to actually relearn Korean for all of his flashback scenes with Sun and on the island, unavoidable. But he's like, you couldn't just have me speak English and the audience will get that.
I never noticed that.
The woman starts asking, I should say, the mother, they're only referred to as, let's see, the mother who washed up gives her name as Claudia. The woman, Allison Janney, is only ever described as the woman in the script, and nobody ever says her name on camera. So she's asked, what's going on? What is this place? And she shuts that down with, every question I answer will simply lead to another question, which, as we're 3 episodes from the show ending, is kind of a got that audience from the creators.
Well, speaking of not having a name given, Claudia goes into labor, and the woman helps her give birth, and out pops a beautiful baby boy. And Claudia says his name is Jacob.
But wait, there's more.
Literally, one more baby is coming out, and after that baby is delivered, Claudia goes, I only picked one name, and I could only think, you can still pick another, Claudia. That's not how naming babies work. Like, if you're limited to exclusively what you come up with before they're born... Man, and then
I love the idea that maybe she would have come up with one, but a moment later she gets her skull smashed in by a rock held by Allison Janney. And since, again, Allison Janney is just called the woman, maybe she doesn't even know what names are, which is why, like, Jacob gets to keep being Jacob, but she never gives the other boy a name.
Yeah, it's so strange.
Yeah. I mean, now, to be fair, historically speaking, there were, of course, infant mortality being what it was, lots of families wouldn't name their children until they hit like a year old. Because, I mean, if it's not going to make it, why give it a name?
There are some times where you just learn about history and you're like, I have no right to ever be unhappy about anything that is going on in my life. Like, you just read about like the average existence for most of human history, and it's like, oh, yeah, I guess it does kind of suck that my DoorDash took twice as long as I hoped.
Or they forgot the fries.
Yeah, life is tough. So as we see them getting a little bit older, they go from babies to like teenagers between scenes, and we see Jacob come upon the woman working on her tapestry where she is carefully weaving threads together, because this episode and the show as a whole loves a metaphor, especially a visual metaphor. And that's going to become important again later as far as like visual metaphors go.
We see the two brothers down at the beach and they establish pretty quickly that Jacob is like the honest, loyal son, and I guess he's the boy in black at this time, is
the bib.
The mib, not yet the mib. That he's a little bit more like he's curious, he wants to explore everything. He finds a game washed up on shore, and they don't really talk about it that much. He just says, I know how to play it, and he and Jacob start putting pieces down. Apparently it's called Senet, which is like a game.
Egyptian, right?
Yeah, archaeologists found it like exploring old Egyptian tombs. It's one of the oldest board games we have a record for, and nobody actually knows what the rules were. Like, there's guesses, but it like stopped being played a couple of thousand years ago, so really all we can do is guess.
Well, apparently it involves shaking really long dice and throwing them. I was like, what the
I kept waiting for one of those to break.
Yeah, those are really sturdily constructed.
It's also where we get the black and the white game tiles that will be important all the way back in season 1. Yeah, so eventually we have like a scene where each kid talks separately to the woman, and she goes, I don't remember I think he says that Bib says that she loves Jacob more than she loves him. And she doesn't really deny it, but just says she loves them each in their own way, which is the kind of thing a parent says when you don't want to overtly screw up your child. You want to really get the knife in there deep. But she tells him that he is special, which makes him one of 22 characters who have passed through Lost who have been described that way.
Yeah.
But he was the first.
Chronologically, yeah.
Yeah, technically. And apparently we find out at this point that the woman had already made her decision to pick him to be her successor at that point, because she tells him rather pointedly that he's not going to die. And I was already setting it, wow, words, putting down the seeds of you're the protector, you're going to be the protector of this place. There's nothing, we're going to bring it up later, across the sea. So, yeah. And I mean, we see a little bit of that specialness. Like, the boy figured out how to play this game with absolutely zero instructions. Of course, he could have just made that up and been like, yeah, I totally know how you play this game.
Honestly, that would thematically kind of work for the two brothers' relationship as they get older.
Yeah.
Eventually, the woman takes them on a walk. She blindfolds them first, but takes them to this special place. And as they're walking, Jacob's just kind of following along, but Bib keeps asking, where are we going? What's, it's implied that his whole thing has always been asking questions about where they are and where they came from and how everything works. And similar to the woman's line to Claudia earlier, a bit of a jab from the writers to the audience, maybe like, hey, you know why Jacob's the good son? Because he just goes where he's told and just lets things happen. Unlike this jerk who won't stop expecting everything to be explained to him. I don't know if they're being that hard about it, but that was just what I was thinking in the moment. She does take them to, we didn't really make any notes about this, I don't think, but the glowing cave that is the heart of the island, and explains that there is a light in there that all men are drawn to because all men have a little bit of that light inside them. But if they try to take the light, they'll destroy it. And if the light goes out there, it will go out everywhere. And that's sort of all we're ever going to get about what is the island, which is a gigantically ballsy decision by the writers, and one that, to put it mildly, is controversial among Lost fans.
A little bit. But I do want to point out that the Bib and his questions of it all just reminds me of that Star Wars meme that keeps going around where somebody said, once I became a parent, the scene in Return of the Jedi where Yoda gets tired of Luke asking so many questions that he just fucking dies makes a lot more sense. But on a Lost related note, it was around this time that I noted, my God, this is the most melodramatic episode since the pilot. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to the child actor of it all, because I don't really want to give these kids too much shit, but we've seen young kid actors on this show who aren't hamming it up as much. I don't even know if you can call it hamming it up. They're just sort of feels very theatrical.
Everything about the way these scenes are written feels like it's kind of a Cecil B. DeMille melodrama, like that kind of very theatrical, historical way of performing. It's not specifically Shakespearean, but it has that kind of everything, all your words have great import and must be spoken with so much weight and consideration. And, that's a challenge for even older actors like Allison Janney or, the older versions of Jacob and the Bib. But,
have you ever thought about doing audiobooks? Because I would listen to that if you did them like that.
I was like, somebody else had already gotten the Twilight books, and those were the only books I wanted to read for anybody.
Man.
But yeah, I think that's a lot to ask for a young actor compared to what Malcolm David Kelly had to do as Walt, or I'm blanking on his name, but the actor who plays Jack's son.
Right.
Just playing you're a kid. Now here's your lines and act like a kid. And that's not what Jacob and young Bib have to do.
Yeah, you're a kid who's hearing some brand new words for the first time. I can't remember what it is specifically, but it's ship. The woman,
Death.
Yeah. The woman brings those up, and he's like, "What's a ship?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, you're not stupid. You're just, thousands of years ago, I guess."
It's interesting that Bib and Jacob are talking in the jungle, and Bib sees a vision of their dead mother over Jacob's shoulder, who then leads him over to where it turns out there's another human settlement on the island. And it's interesting that I don't think it's ever been established that Jacob has... We know once he's dead, he can still communicate with people, but he tells Richard that he can't bring the dead back, and we have no indication that he's ever able to talk to the dead. But we know that Flock is able to see visions of young Jacob, and it's suggested that he's been able to see and communicate with other dead people as well as to impersonate them. So it's interesting that he has this ability that connects him with Hurley, of all people, who is probably the most un-Mib-like person on the island, but that they both have that trait in them.
Well, I think that's another reason that he was going to be picked originally over Jacob as the successor, is because he's got all the traits of somebody that you would want. Like, he is much more ruthless and cold-blooded than Jacob is. Jacob sees new people coming to the island, and he's like, how can I help these people? How can I turn one of them, into a worthy successor? And the Man in Black is like, how do I fucking kill these people? Which, as he and the woman have the same philosophy. People come to the island, they find the source, they want to abuse it. And that's, So yeah, I think like his innate ability to figure things out, his ability to talk to the dead, his ruthlessness, are all qualities that would work in a protector.
It is interesting that as easy as it is to kind of divide it into, Jacob is the embodiment of good and the Man in Black is the embodiment of evil, there are textures in their story overall, but especially in this episode, that, Jacob is the one who believes in being like removed and at a distance from all these other humans on the island, but that also lets him see them with like admiration and interest. Whereas we find out that, Mib grew up among them and is like, yeah, they're as like cruel and manipulative and evil as our fake mom said, but that's why I'm going to be able to use them to get off the island. So in some ways his cynicism as we watch the show, everybody is kind of broken is sort of a thesis statement for the characters of Lost. But the belief about where people can go from there, there's a reason Jacob is down to only 4 candidates. Most of the people he's bet on and believed in have either died or failed. So, who's right or who's wrong. It's a little bit more nuanced to what is ultimately kind of a good and evil conflict, but I like, especially in this episode, that we are allowed to have some sympathy with Mib just for the hand he's been dealt.
Well, before we transition from the child actors to the adult ones, we get a scene of Jacob talking to his mother on the beach, his mother, the woman on the beach, where we try to speed run how many times can we say the title of this episode. The challenge level is set to easy because it turns out it's 6. He looks at her and he's like, Mom, what's across the sea? And she says, there's nothing across the sea. And they proceed to say across the sea 3 more times in the space of like a 2-minute scene. I was like, what? We have never done this before. At no point, like we will get the title drop, and I think we get a title drop in the very next episode. Somebody says what they died for, but it was never at any point like, well, all the best cowboys have daddy issues. Really? You think all the best cowboys have daddy issues? Oh, everyone knows all the best cowboys have daddy issues.
Boy, that would have been a weird episode.
I get it as kind of a summary of what is ultimately the Man in Black's whole thing. He just wants to get out of there and explore, and he doesn't know what he wants. He's never been off the island, although we do know eventually that when he possesses people or when he impersonates people, he gets at least some of their memories. He's able to reference things that like Locke and Yemi did off the island. But, it represents everything that he's wanted and that eventually Jacob gets but denies him. So, yeah, I get the idea of why they'd want to underline that. But, yeah, you're not wrong that they underline, bold, circle,
highlight,
double circle, emboss, all that.
Put it in a different font than the rest of the dialogue.
Yeah, I wrote this next one down, David. I think it's actually something you said about what happens after the time jump.
Yeah, it's not clearly indicated right away how much time has passed, but we jump from like 15-year-old Bib and Jacob to 45-year-old Mib and Jacob, and I said, wow, puberty was really rough on those boys. And it's just, to me, it was startling just how much better Mark Pellegrino and Titus Welliver were than those child actors. I don't want to just sound like I'm shitting on those two kids, but damn.
But you would if you could.
I mean, we are on like the fourth to last episode of the show. If it were me, I'd be pulling out all the stops and like casting the best children to play these two monumentally important roles that I could. Yeah. Well, age hasn't really changed Jacob that much because he is still like following after his mom and living in the same cave and keeping her tapestry going and saying things like, mom's never going to die. And I was just like, oh, Jacob, you big man baby. You maintain that youthful boyishness well into your fucking 40s.
I guess relative to his actual lifespan, he's still pretty early on in years.
He doesn't know that yet. He is a middle-aged man saying things like, mom's never going to die.
It is fun to actually see both of them compared to, how we first saw them in the season 5 finale, is just both seeming very like timeless and just sort of set in where they are. That both of them play a younger and more with Jacob, it's very like, doe-eyed mama's boy attitude, and with the Men in Black, it's very very petulant and kind of just like it's the kid who like smokes cigarettes as soon as mom's gone around the corner, but he wants to make sure she smells what's going on. It's just there's a lot of screw you mom energy to all of his line readings. We do get for all the people complained about the show or this episode in particular not really giving specific concrete answers, it does give us the real explanation that I think any fan ever needed, which is the origin story of the frozen donkey wheel. We find out that that the humans on the island have, I don't know why I keep saying humans as if there's like some other species. The other people on the island have found some of those energy sources, and they've even dug down, and they're going to install the donkey wheel near one of these wells. And it's just like, okay, I know where the donkey wheel came from. Some people dug a hole and put it there. Boom. I'm good.
For like, how does the frozen donkey wheel work? Meh.
Because you push it and it turns.
Yeah. So the woman goes to talk to Mib, the man in black, and she finds him down inside one of these wells where he's doing some work. There's a moment where Titus Welliver really has to act the hell out of pulling a rock away from the wall. Like it's really in there. And you can tell that right before they filmed, a PA went and just put a styrofoam rock in the hole that the light is going to come out of. But man, he really like gets his hand in there, and you see him struggling to get it out. And I was like, oh man, that's some good acting. Well, that's a good instinct on your part. But he tells the woman that his plan is to tap into the light on the other side of this wall and install that wheel. And when he does, he's going to turn it and get off the island. And I thought, he is strangely confident about a plan that makes zero sense. What do you mean you're going to install a wheel and then turn it? What is that going to do? There doesn't appear to be any other complicated system of machinery. There are no pulleys or levers or gears. What do you mean you're just going to turn it and leave the island?
Well, those are in the other mines.
Oh.
Yeah, we're just seeing down. He's just in the one hole with the wheel. The machinery and stuff are in the other holes that we don't get to see.
Ah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. His explanation is just like, some of the men here are very smart and they're figuring this out. It's just like, yeah, I guess it's... I mean, joking aside, it is kind of the idea that like what matters is this conflict between this woman and her adopted son and, his sense of imprisonment versus the need to protect the island. Everything works perfectly on a thematic level as long as you are okay just not having the slightest clue about the like cold mechanics of any of it.
If you're not a nerd like us who question all of these things before, during, and after watching them, yeah, just take it in and go with it. Don't think about it too hard.
So Allison Janney, I think it's after that conversation, she knocks him out, right? She slams the back of his head into the wall.
Yeah.
and then takes Jacob to the back to the glowy cave. And at this point, I just realized that a recurring thing is that Jacob and the woman are barefoot in all the wide shots. They never wear shoes when walking around the island. And, since we've mostly seen Jacob on the beach, I'm like, okay, that's probably not too bad. But dang, like walking through like the jungle, like the rocks on the river and all that, it's like, that had to be some rough spots in shooting.
Well, I oddly enough, I didn't think about it like in actual, real people terms, but I thought, wow, like how awful to not have shoes ever. Like, why? If she can weave shit, she can make some shoes. The Man in Black has shoes. I know he went to live with the humans. But I just thought, oh, God, I cannot imagine the calloused aspect of how their feet were.
Well, in the very next scene, when we see Jacob pulling the Man in Black through the forest to where he's eventually going to try to not kill him, we see that they are both wearing sandals in that scene. Excuse me 1 second.
Bless you.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that, listeners. I just wondered if maybe Mark Pellegrino and Allison Janney got those fake Hobbit feet that the actors in The Lord of the Rings got, because the Hobbits never wore shoes, so they put like prosthetics over the bottom of their feet. That would have been nice, I guess.
I didn't know that either.
So Jacob and his mother talk, and she's like, well, I guess I'm going to have to pass this power on to you. And he's like, well, you never, it was never supposed to be me. You never wanted it to be me. You wanted it to be him. And I just needed her to be like, oh, but honey, you're mommy's silver medal.
It's better than a consolation prize.
I guess.
It is ironic that, like, Jacob will eventually die at the hands of a man who's furious that after everything he's done, somebody else who just shows up gets given everything he wanted. Like, that's Ben's stated reason for killing Jacob at the end. And it's funny that despite Jacob kind of shrugging off Ben's words in what seems like the moment, he really did know what he was feeling, like that he'd been through that same thing himself. And even if he wasn't going to go out of his way to change Ben's mind, it's a kind of a sad, sweet parallel for their characters. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So we get to Mib wakes up and climbs out of... No, he wakes up outside the mine, like he was dragged out of it after being knocked out. And everybody else is dead. The entire settlement's been wiped out.
The well has been closed,
yes.
like crashed into.
And I noted, I was like, I wish we could have seen Allison Janney just tear through that settlement like John Wick, just like her, like breaking dudes' necks and like throwing knives around. But also, you mentioned earlier about her being barefoot when, footwear was probably available. What if she was a smoke monster?
I was about to ask you if you had read this fan theory.
That we never see her transform, but it would explain how she's able to wipe out all those people. She tells them early, like, that, if you go down the water into the glowing cave, you'll suffer a fate worse than death, which is implied to be like something she knows from experience.
The first time that we see her is the same time that Claudia sees her, when she looks up from the water and the woman is just standing there. We didn't hear her approach or anything. She just sort of appears. And then she single-handedly kills this entire settlement of people that Mib was working with. So yeah, there was a fan theory that she was also a smoke monster.
Huh.
Yeah.
But then how could she be killed? Because can you kill the smoke monster?
Well, that might explain why there was some belief that dagger could actually kill the smoke monster if you stabbed him with it, because in fact that's the knife that will eventually kill her.
Well, and keep in mind, she was only killed after she had passed her power on to Jacob. Uh-huh.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's quite the interesting fan theory.
Isn't it?
I kind of like that one.
And just one other note that an interesting kind of constant thing on the island is that there is always just a woman hiding in the wild that, the other settlers have to be afraid of. That it was Rousseau for a while, then it was Claire, and then long, long ago it was this woman just hiding out there while other people were, digging holes and building donkey wheels.
Like I said earlier, this episode and the show as a whole, I guess, love a good visual metaphor because when Jacob gets back after the man in black has killed the woman, he sees that their carefully woven tapestry has been destroyed by the man in black, which is just a statement, for the smoke monster, for the man in black as a whole, just completely trying to undo everything that the two of them have done. This is one of those few that I'm like, yeah, it's on the nose, but I don't hate it. And I remember now why this episode pissed so many people off when it came out. Because at the very end, they shoehorn in Jack and Kate and Locke by explaining that way back in season 1 when they found the caves, the man in black and the woman were the skeletons that they found. But otherwise, no named cast members appear in present day, just that one archive footage. And this, like I said, is the 4th from last episode. We have 3 to go after this. So not only are we like putting in what feels like a fluff episode immediately after the deaths of Saeed, Jin, and Sun, it's this fluff episode. It exists, one, to sort of kind of expand on the conflict between Jacob and the man in black, but we already had the bones of that. We knew what we needed to know. And to explain what the heart of the island is. Since I think the writers at some point realized, oh shit, we haven't set that up yet. Can we just put in an episode right here, right before the end, so that the finale makes sense? So that leads into my last question for this episode. Should this episode have occurred earlier in the season? I'm a emphatic yes. I think this episode should have dropped after the massacre at the temple. What do you guys think?
I think it could have been the very first episode of the season even.
I like that this is sort of the culmination of everything we've gotten across the season. Across the season.
I hate you.
Of just who these guys were, that like all of Flock's references to, that he used to be a human with a body, or his conversations with Kate and Claire about his own very disturbed mother. Just the sense of like, I like it a little better as kind of like a last bow on sort of the grand mythology of the island, that this is like the story of the island's past, and the next episode is going to be a lot about the island's future. And as we sort of like, with the stakes of the finale ultimately being like, will the island be destroyed or not? I see why they chose to focus it here. I do understand people kind of, after a season that has very interesting pacing structure, I'm using kind of neutral language on that because I'm going to wait till after the finale to kind of try to cohere my thoughts on that one. But yeah, it does feel like the brakes stop on forward plot momentum to tell us a bunch of stuff that informs the stakes of it all, but don't really give us a lot of like, oh, this tells us like where a bomb is that they're going to have to defuse, or oh, this reveals that a character we thought was good was secretly evil all along. It fills in a lot, and I think I like that it does so, but yeah, I don't know where the best placement would have been. I think they did the best job of teeing it up that they could have, but yeah, this was always. I think the creators have said they were surprised by how vehement the negative response was to it, but yeah, I get why they made the decision they did.
Did you guys watch this live? Like, were you watching weekly at that point?
I was.
Yeah. I remember leaving the last episode devastated about Saeed, Jin, and Sun, and wondering how the next episode could follow up on that and what was coming next. And then we get across the sea, and me and my group of friends were like, the fuck was that shit? What do you mean that there's a light at the middle of the island and that's what they've got to protect? What does that mean? Like, what was up with these two kid actors? What? Were
you hating on those
Why?
kid actors back then, too?
Probably.
Probably.
But yeah, we were definitely on the what was that train, well, in regards to this one particular episode.
Cara, do you remember your thoughts when you first watched it?
I don't. There literally are just certain things that I do. Like, the losing of the loss of Jin, Sun, and Sight, that I remembered. And I hated that I remembered it because that made re-watching it worse. But yeah, and honestly, I'm a blank until the end. End.
The end of the end.
The end of the end.
Robert, were you as mad about this as everyone else?
No, I'm very much usually, once I like a show and I'm kind of into it, I sort of tend to roll along with it. I can't remember a lot of cases where I liked a show and they had an episode or made a decision where I was just like, what is that? That's crazy. I'm not. There have been cases where I'll like, after I'm done with the whole thing, I'll look back and be like, yeah, I guess that is probably where I started to lose interest. But it doesn't tend to be like, for me, a single episode or a single thing. It's just kind of, I'll come to a realization where I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm not as excited about this show as I used to be. Like, I think The Boys just wrapped up its end, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I was kind of into that show at one point, and I just haven't really been interested since the third season.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm going to finish The Boys, but I'm not in any hurry to.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I really enjoyed the first 2 seasons.
yeah.
Before it started getting like really out there and gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like gross, just not that kind of gross.
Well, that's a great segue because we're going to move on from Across the Sea. If those are, in fact, you guys' last thoughts on Across the Sea. If you've got anything else that you'd like to say about Across the Sea, now is the time to
I would like
dot
to
your
say,
I's and
cross your C's.
across the seas.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's enough of Across the Sea. We're going to move on to episode 616, What They Died For, a sentence that only gets said once in this episode.
Thank God.
And why not? We're here towards the end. Why not throw in one more iWatch? This time it is Flash Sideways Jack waking up in his bed.
And for the second time this season, Sideways Jack wakes up and notices an injury that he seems confused by. Because way back in the season premiere, he noticed that he had a cut on his side, and now he has what looks like kind of a bleeding scratch on his neck. And he's confused by that, but kind of sets it aside when his son invites him into the kitchen for breakfast, and he starts to go on about his day.
After that, we get a really cute scene of him and his son having breakfast, and then out wanders Claire to join them for breakfast, which is really funny if you, like, I think Gina had momentarily forgotten that Jack and Claire are brother and sister and had just discovered that about each other because she, like, walks out of there and for a second you're like, damn, did Jack hook up? Oh, shit, they're brother and sister. I forgot.
Sure hope it wasn't his kid.
That's your aunt. That's your 9 months pregnant aunt. Anyway, Jack gets a phone call explaining from somebody claiming to be from Oceanic Airlines, explaining that they found his lost, father's corpse, and then it's en route to LAX, and Jack runs off. But we find out that the person on the other end of that line was none other than Desmond, doing a surprisingly good American dialect.
And Desmond is back in the, I can't even say it without laughing, back in the parking lot of Locke's school. And as Locke wheels his way across to the building, Desmond turns his engine. I think we said, oh, he's here to run him over again. And right as we say that, Desmond actually turned on his engine. So we were like, is he going to do it again?
Well, the best part of this is that he doesn't appear to have switched cars at any point. So for all these people know, like yesterday or the day before, this car showed up, ran over Locke and drove off, and then now it's back. Like he's been sitting there long enough to make a phone call to Jack and for Ben to notice him.
Because Ben does come up, and in continuing that kind of charming reversal, like in the last episode, not the last podcast episode, we talked about how Ben in the ambulance doesn't actually know anything about John Locke, but is trying to help him, which is the reverse of Island Ben. In this case, Ben has like no physical abilities or anything else, but really does his damnedest to try to subdue this guy that he thinks tried to murder his colleague, Mr. Locke. And his reward is the universal constant of Ben's everywhere, getting punched in the face really hard. And we find out that this may be Desmond's way of triggering like memories of the main timeline again, because as he's getting punched, Ben remembers getting beaten up by Desmond on the dock. And maybe there was another way that Desmond could have like triggered Ben's memory.
Could have hit him with his car.
just to try it, just
I mean, hey, what had worked for one guy?
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved if he had carefully laid out plans for like half of the cast, and the other half of the cast, he's like, I guess I'll just run him over with my car.
Sorry, Claire.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was dark.
Oh, man.
Well, I'm going to... so I noted that even Flash Sideways Ben can't help from getting beaten up. I'm going to put it later in the notes because I realized it as the episode went on, but I'll bring it up here. Everyone else that we've seen so far has had their personal revelations because of the love of a woman. Hurley because of Livy, Desmond because of remembering Penny, and there
Charlie and Claire.
Oh my gosh, Daniel Faraday talks about
Charlotte.
Remembering Charlotte. Ben,
Sawyer
however,
very pointedly does not have it when he sees Kate, which I think we all appreciated.
yes. Although I'll bring that up later. But Ben had his own revelation because of his love of getting the shit kicked out of him.
You're not wrong.
So the next time, like on island time, that we see Ben, he is trekking through the woods with Miles and Richard, because I'm glad they gave us this, because like I said in the last episode we recorded, I fucking forgot that Miles and Richard even went off with Ben. They disappeared for 3 episodes. And now we see them trekking through the jungle, and Miles is like, hey, are you really sure this is a shortcut to the barracks? And Ben's like, of course it is. And Miles says, one of my favorite quotes of the episode, I lived here before you did 30 years ago, otherwise known as last week, which is a nice reminder that the entirety of the back half of season 5 and all of this season have happened in the space of like 8 or 9 days.
Miles gets a couple of great lines this episode. He doesn't get to do much, but you love that Miles snark.
And we're getting a season 6 classic now, check-in of an old location watch. This time they make their way. We saw it earlier in the season when Sawyer went there to be sad and get drunk after Juliet's death. But Richard and Ben and Miles have made their way back to the barracks at New Otherton, as we dubbed it.
We get a nice moment where Miles starts to react the way he does when he's detecting, the energy of a dead body nearby. And he doesn't want to tell Ben who it is, but Richard steps in to say it's Alex, because after Ben left the island, Richard buried her, and Ben just quietly thanks him in a sweet little moment between the two. It turns out that they've come all this way because Richard is still very gung-ho about his plan to blow up the plane to keep Flock from escaping the island. And Ben has a bunch of C4 in his safe room in his house, in the secreter room, as Miles calls it. And I just found myself wondering, did Ben just choose not to mention this when Ilana was toting unstable dynamite back and forth from the Black Rock, eventually killing herself? Like, that he was just watching her, like, drag that stuff back and forth, slinging it around the bag and being like, should I? Nah.
I think he was hoping, like, oh, yeah, no, go get some more dynamite. We definitely need some more.
Yeah, it's the next note that I wrote down. But Ilana announced her plan to everybody to go to the Black Rock to get the dynamite immediately after she chained Ben to a tree and made him dig his own grave. I probably wouldn't have been very forthcoming about my secret stash of C4 if somebody had made me, I don't know, dig my own grave.
Yeah.
We eventually, let's see, I think they come out into the kitchen from the secreter room and find Zoe out there, and then Charles Widmore walks in through the front door and stares down Ben. And it's not focused on, but if you watch closely, you see he stops so that a photo of Alex is positioned directly over his right shoulder, which is a nice piece of framing when he and Ben have this last confrontation.
Well, lots of people have complained about not getting explanations for things in the show, and you joked about it afterwards, like how important was it for the audience to finally find the secret history of the donkey wheel. People still to this day are like, oh yeah, they never answered any questions. And even me, like a few episodes ago, I was like, okay, for most of the show's runtime, we knew that Widmore wanted to get back to the island because he had lived there once and been exiled, and he's been trying to get his way back ever since. But all this season, it's been like, well, I'm here because we have to stop the Man in Black. And my question was, okay, when the fuck did he find out about that if he was exiled in 1994? And this episode actually does give us a tidy little answer to that question, because Widmore tells Ben that shortly after they blew up the freighter at the end of season 4, 3 years earlier, Jacob came to visit Widmore and told him what Smokey's plan was likely going to be, and that Widmore had to be enlisted to help stop it. So presumably that's why Eloise was at the Looking Glass, why she was determining the location of the island so that Widmore could put his geek squad together and go find it. Now, how were these fucking nerds supposed to stop the smoke monster? Who knows? But it's nice to get an answer to the question, because I wrote down, okay, wow, that actually does explain my question from a few episodes ago.
I think the actual line is, Jacob talked to me. He showed me the error of my ways, which really feels like it was something that they told themselves they were going to find an episode or a flashback to stick it in somewhere, and then kind of ran out of time. So it's just like...
Well, they had to cut it to give us Across the Sea. Yeah, and then that was my note about Ben's revelation coming from getting beaten up. Sorry, these damn headphones and this damn wind muff. Anyway, we get a jungle run. I feel like we haven't had one of those in a while. Hurley, while trekking through the woods, sees teenage Jacob running around and goes chasing off after him. So we get a jungle run between both Hurley and teenage Jacob.
Hurley's been carrying the bag of ashes that they collected from where Jacob was burned, and the kid shouts, "Those are mine," before grabbing them and running off, which is hilariously true.
Damn, I didn't even think about that. No, like those weren't my possessions. That's me.
Yeah, Jacob eventually shows up, like adult Jacob, when Hurley catches up to him, and Jacob announces, "We're very close to the end, Hugo." And I looked at my watch and was like, yeah, about 25 minutes, really, if we just kept it going.
Yeah, and I added that line to like our best lines of the show because...
I'm sorry, that was your note.
No, it's okay. And when... We've had a lot of fun. We love Cara, but we've had a lot of fun at her expense, like every time that she's gotten really upset about something. When Jacob said this line, "We're very close to the end, Hugo," I glanced over at Cara and saw her face like fall. Like she got visibly upset to realize that we are very close to the end now. Yeah, sorry, Cara.
That's okay. It's just good to know that sometimes I do have feelings other than anger and hatred.
I feel that.
Back at New Otherton, they realize that Flock is almost there, and they immediately start making the plan for, what they're going to do about him. And Miles, again, being just the most grounded person in the room, his plan is, let's grab our stuff and run as far in the other direction as we possibly can. And while they kind of talk more about, like, well, there's no point in running from him, or no, we can hole up in the safe room, or no, what we need to do is talk to him. And at no point does Miles venture away from his, I'm going to get my stuff and get out of here. Like, he just occasionally keeps dropping in a line to be like, you do whatever, I'm gone.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact line, but it's something along the lines of, okay, you guys have fun with that. I'm running.
And Richard, who... I feel like because the ghost of his wife through Hurley told him that he had like an important role to play in stopping the Man in Black, is really serenely confident that he can go out and talk to him. He's like, I know this man. He wants me to join his side. So he strides out and then just gets like plastered. It's like if the smoke monster was doing like a football punt is sort of what it would look like. Richard just goes flying, and I didn't say anything to Gina because I didn't want to mention either way. I was like, does she think Richard's dead now? Because that very much looks like it would kill most people. He does just go flying.
In the Flash Sideways, we get to see Ben after his beatdown from Desmond earlier in the episode. We skipped over, but in the Flash Sideways, he encountered Locke at the hospital. And now back at the school, he sees Alex, who runs up and sees his beat-up state. And she goes, "Why would anyone want to hurt you? It's because you haven't seen the rest of this show, Alex. There's an ample amount of reasons why people would want to hurt Ben Linus. They've been doing it since halfway into season 2. I think there are more episodes where he's been beat up or is in some form of pain than there are where he's normal.
I would love to see somebody with way more time than I have do like a side-by-side comparison of like the time Michael Emerson just gets to appear looking as he normally does versus the scenes where he's got some kind of wound prosthetic on, like a bruise, a cut, a stitch, whatever.
I think it's literally, and I'm probably wrong about this, aside from the 3-year time skip where he was like living in Los Angeles or traveling and having people killed, presumably he didn't get beat up a whole lot during then. But I think the flashback that starts season 3, that we later see again from Juliet's point of view in season 4, right before like the book club and the plane crash, that's one of the very few times we see him without any sort of cuts and bruise makeup. Oh, poor guy.
But Alex, because she just thinks, Dr. Linus is the coolest teacher ever. She insists that he needs to let them give him a ride home because his arm is a little bit messed up. And so she introduces him to her mom, played by the returning Mira Furlan. So we get Sideways Rousseau, who just has a great big smile on her face and is so excited for someone to come back. And it is the weirdest Sideways character we've seen yet.
I don't know why, but it gave me the creeps.
Well, yeah, 3.5 seasons of her just always looking dour and pointing rifles at people and also just looking grungy. Here she's wearing like a nice dress and her makeup and she's got her hair done. She just looks nice and
you
happy.
appreciate like the resting haunted face that she'd built up, that we all just kind of assumed that she just had those like, that haunted look in her face all the time. And so when the actress just turns that off, it's like, oh, whoa, totally different human being.
I love resting haunted face. It's much more evocative than like resting bitch face. Oh yeah, so Ben decides that he's going to try to hide Widmore and Tina Fey in his secret room in the basement while he and Richard go and talk to Smokey. And after Richard gets yeeted into the woods, Ben just kind of sits down and waits for his fate from the Man in Black. But instead, Smokey offers him the island in exchange for killing some people for him. So Ben just sort of immediately sells out Widmore and Tina Fey and takes the Man in Black down to his basement where they're hiding. And when it becomes clear to the Man in Black that he's not going to get what he wants out of her, he just slices Tina Fey's throat. Goodbye, Tina Fey, or Tina Fo, or Timu Tina, all the nicknames that we've given you over the last, 6 or 8 episodes. I don't remember.
I wish the nicknames hadn't been way more memorable than anything you actually did in the show.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's a nice line from Flock where he starts to ask her a question and Widmore tells her not to say anything. And so Flock immediately kills her and goes, "You told her not to talk. That made her pointless," which...
Touche.
Terry O'Quinn can be a scary dude when he wants to be. It's interesting that this is sort of Widmore's last stand, because after him being this, menacing figure in the background throughout all of season 3 and 4, that he comes to the island, like you said, he brings his nerd squad. They fail as soon as Saeed is able to unplug the sonic fence, or however he got past that. And while, Alan Dale is such a commanding presence, he really is just showing up in here with absolutely no cards left to play. And he eventually tells, I think it's here that he says he brought Desmond Hume back to the island because they needed somebody who had a resistance to electromagnetism because of his time in the hatch. And then when Flock says, "I'll kill your daughter as soon as I get off this island unless you tell me what I want to know," Widmore starts to whisper in his ear, and then Ben just pulls out a gun and shoots him. And when Flock looks over at him in surprise, Ben goes, "He doesn't get to save his daughter," which the same Ben who just said so when Locke 1.0 reminded him that killing Kimi was also going to kill everybody on the freighter.
Yeah, we really haven't seen cold-blooded Ben in a while, so that was a great moment for him.
And from Ben's perspective, I mean, you can absolutely understand it.
Mm-hmm. I did like what you wrote here about the once great Charles Widmore, though.
Yeah, just that this guy who was this, titan of industry, a great leader on the island once, but just his time is so past by the time we see him in this season that, he dies standing cornered in a closet. He has he's no threat to Flock. And honestly, as soon as he's done, like, yeah, Flock would almost certainly would have killed him if Ben hadn't.
The man who once bought a commercial airliner and filled it with corpses for the express purpose of sinking it is now dead. Goodbye, Charles Widmore.
We do, back in the Sideways universe, I forget what it is about his conversation with... Oh, that's right. Locke talks to Ben in the school infirmary while Ben's getting patched up. And Ben says, like, I thought I was going to call the police, but he said he didn't do it to hurt you. And for some reason, I believed him, that he was just trying to get you to let go. And that inspires Locke to go back to Jack's office in the hospital and, just summarize everything that, came down. That they were on the same plane together. They, he happened to be the surgeon on call when Locke got run over by a car. And just, he lists all this stuff that is telling him that it's time, that has brought him to this office. And Jack, more mildly than the Island Jack I would have said, just kind of offers up the, I think you're mistaking coincidence for fate, which is just the oldest conversation these two men have. But Locke tells him that he is finally ready to get out of the chair. So Jack is, again, interestingly, that Jack stops trying to persuade Locke to do it, and that's when Locke decides to. Just another, whether our choices or whether our, fates are responsible for where we end up. So... Locke and Jack, I've said it before, but their whole relationship across the season is just constantly affecting to me. I think we did kind of start just watching the episode here because we skimmed over.
We gotta move back to this one particular scene that I love so much of Jacob addressing Jack, Kate, Hurley, and Sawyer, because it's the best part of the episode. One of the highlights of the season, and really makes me wish we had gotten more Mark Pellegrino. The difference between like man-child Jacob that we saw in the last episode versus karate kicking and flipping a man in Richard's flashback episode to this serene, wise Jacob that we get here. It's so fucking good. But anyway, Robert, continue.
So he just kind of lays out that their names were in the cave because they were candidates, that he knew one day he would have to be replaced, and now that he's dead, it's going to have to be one of them. He's burning the last remnants of his ashes in the fire, which is why all of them can see and hear him, not just Hurley. But once those ashes are gone, he'll disappear forever. And Kate asks why her name was crossed out, and I think I'd mentioned a couple of times that I couldn't remember if that was ever explained. And Jacob tells her it's because she'd become a mother, and he it seems like he goes into a little more detail on this, but his ideal candidate is not somebody who has like an attachment back in the real world that is going to be pulling them away. It's got to be somebody who can stay on the island and really get what they need there.
He gets a great line where he looks at her and says, "It's just a line of chalk on the wall, Kate. The job's yours if you want it." I've watched this scene a couple of times. I love it so much because shortly after this, Sawyer says to him something along the lines of like, "Why did you bring me into all this? I was doing just fine before you came around." And Jacob looks at him and very bluntly says, "No, you weren't. None of you were. I didn't pluck any of you out of a happy existence." Which, again, love the scene, love the delivery, love the writing here, but it sent me down a weird rabbit hole because I was thinking of when did Jacob make contact with all of them, as we saw at the end of season 5. He made contact with Jack after a particularly tough surgery, with Saeed after the death of Nadia, with Ilana after what appeared to be like a very horrendous burn injury.
With Locke after he got pushed out a window by his father.
Yep, when he had just been paralyzed and was at his literal and metaphorical and like spiritual and existential lowest point. Sawyer, when he was a child at his parents' funeral, writing a revenge letter. But when did he encounter Kate? When she was like 12 years old, stealing something minor from a gas station, like this old country store. Did Jacob clock that Kate's life was going to be shitty that early? And I know we've spent a lot of time on this show shitting on Kate, but I really, really feel like there's still time left for us to do it more.
Agreed.
Well, it's interesting that because he saw Sun and Jen at their wedding, so before like they'd really gone into like, the hardest time of their relationship. So I feel like there are other cases where it's not always like their lowest point that he sees them. It's sometimes just like, I see you at this point that's going to take you there.
He does say you were all looking for something that you couldn't find, which makes him meeting Jin and Sun at their wedding even like harsher in hindsight.
I kind of wonder if the reason that there was just Quan on the wall and not, it wasn't specific which one it was, is because it really didn't matter which one, but as long as they were both alive, neither one could be completely committed to the island. So if there was a scenario where only one of them was still alive, maybe that person could be a candidate. But as long as the other one was out there, they'd always be looking for them.
Oof. And then, listeners, there are occasionally moments, because we have a shared app, note app, where we take all these notes, and every once in a while, two or more of us will have the same thought at the same time. And Robert and I started writing this together, and then I saw his had already been started, so I stopped and erased mine. But what's the line, Robert?
So after Jacob lays out the whole the need for everything, Jack immediately steps up and offers to take the role, because it's, he's like, it's what I'm here for. It's what I need. And while Jacob goes off to give him a drink of water from the river and say the magic words that his mother said to him, or that the woman said to him, Sawyer, Kate, and Hurley watch from a distance, and Sawyer cracks, and I thought he had a god complex before. And Hurley says, I'm just glad it's not me. And
Robert and I both picked up our phones and started to type that out.
As we were driving home, I like to ask Gina just sort of, what'd you think of that? What do you think's going to happen next? And she was like, I guess, I don't know. I thought Jack just seemed too obvious. Like it was going to be somebody else. I was hoping it'd be Hurley. And I was just like,
Oh, you don't say.
I don't know about that. But yeah, and so that scene ends with Jack standing up from the river and Jacob literally handing him the torch that was set on the ground beside him, just to, as like we said, this show gets very big with its metaphors sometimes.
Yes, and I love this because I've joked about it many times on this show, how much I love the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Robert, have you seen the episode where the gang is the test audience for the next Thundergun movie?
I've seen the one where they're trying to get to the theater. Right?
Yes. So that one has a sequel, like 10 years later, where the gang gets asked to be a special screening audience and then provide feedback on a new Thundergun movie. And afterwards, the poor moderator who is asking them questions about the movie has to explain to them that there's a scene where Dolph Lundgren's character literally passes a torch to his character's son. And she's like, how did you not get this? He literally passes a torch. It's great. Anyway, back to the show we actually watched. This is a really subtle and might not actually mean anything, but in the flash sideways, we see Desmond turn himself in for beating up Ben and running over Locke, so that he gets put into holding cells next to Saeed and Kate. And when officers show up to take them away, I assume to county, Kate tries to convince Sawyer, this flash sideways Kate tries to convince flash sideways Sawyer, who is a cop in this timeline, to let her go and let her escape. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm a police officer. But before the scene ends, he looks at her and he says, it was nice knowing you. And there's just the briefest of seconds where you see a look on his face and then it cuts over to hers where those words trigger something in the two of them. And I don't know if that was an acting choice or if it was in the script, a directing choice. Could be nothing. But in the context of like people having revelations and awakenings, I think that moment is really great. And then
so yeah, the three of them get loaded into the back of a police van, and Desmond, as he's always been in the side of his world, is just chill about everything, and tells Kate and Saeed that they can all get out of there, but they've got he needs them to promise that they'll do something that he asks them to, and they're both like, yeah, sure, whatever, crazy guy. And then the van comes to a stop, and it opens, and it's Officer Ana Lucia, who is the driver, and also in Sideways universe, crooked as all hell, because, again, in her, as far as she knows, the people in this van are a guy who ran over a paraplegic and then brutally assaulted another teacher in a middle school parking lot, a fugitive murderer, and a guy who was the main suspect in a triple homicide at Kimi's restaurant?
Yes.
And I guess if they found Mikhail's body there afterwards, so there are like 4 or 5 bodies that are all tied to him. And, a pregnant woman also got shot there. And, she is letting them all go because Hurley shows up with an envelope full of cash. And he asks Desmond, is she coming too? And Desmond says, no, she's not ready yet. And so Ana Lucia takes off, and that's just one last appearance by Michelle Rodriguez.
And Cara breathes a sigh of relief.
Yep.
So let's see. I think Saeed goes off with Hurley, and Desmond tells Kate that they're going to a concert and pulls out a very lovely dress, which, after a moment of confusion, I realized Kate was going to wear. But so he is moving the sideways endgame into position. And back on the island, Locke has gone to the well where he dumped Desmond, only to find out that the well is empty and a rope was let down the side, so somebody got him out of there. I almost don't want to make this joke because I can't remember how things proceed from here, but I think it would have been hilarious if Ben had looked at Flock and been like, do you know anyone who's a good tracker?
Oh, man.
But, yeah, so Flock explained, because Widmore had said that Desmond was there as a failsafe, that Jacob had brought him there in case he needed to destroy the island as sort of a measure of last resort. And, in fact, Flock is looking for him specifically so he can do that. And that's what he's going to do. The last line of the episode is him telling Ben, I'm going to destroy the island. And, just in case you weren't clear on how high stakes it was going to be in the finale. Also funny that just earlier that same episode, his lure to get Ben back on his side was, I'll leave you in charge of the island once I'm gone. But I think he's sort of so, done with everything now that he's just like, oh, by the way, I'm going to destroy the island. You can run if you want. I'll kill you.
Yeah, if the scene had gone on 10 seconds longer, it would have been Ben going, wait a minute, you told me I could have the island after you were gone. I lied. Lost. Oh, man. Great episode after a not great episode, but that's what tends to happen on this show. And now we are going into the last 2 episodes. We are recording and releasing this on Thursday, May 21st. So in 2 days, on Saturday, May 23rd, we are going to get together and watch both parts of the finale 16 years to the date after it aired. And we are almost guaranteed to not be well emotionally afterwards. So that's why we are giving ourselves 2 days afterwards. Monday is going to be Memorial Day, and then next Tuesday, we will sit down and record our last episode-specific episode of this show. And then that'll release next Thursday. And then, we'll do our wrap-up and our Lost adjacent movie, which we'll wait to announce until next week, because we're going to need something to pick us up after what I'm sure is going to be a very emotional episode of the podcast for all 3 of us. So, yeah, we got that to look forward to. In the meantime, Robert, social media or a thing that you want to promote or that is bringing you joy?
I've been just catching up on a lot of TV shows that I like now that I'm done with theater for a little bit. And I just finished watching, or I'm almost finishing the first season of Severance on Apple TV Plus, which is one of those shows that was such a huge splash when it came out a few years ago. And I was trying really hard not to learn too much about it because I understand it's one of those shows that the less you know going in, the better. It's really good. Just a really interesting kind of sci-fi concept, sort of corporate America satire. Adam Scott is just such an underrated gem on television. Loved him in Party Down, Parks and Rec, just everything he's ever worked on. Great show. So if you got Apple TV, check it out.
Are we having fun yet? Cara, social media or just something that is sparking joy?
Well, I just finished Duma Key, and oh my God, I loved it so much. So much. I think I have discovered that I've got a real bent for his supernatural kind of books. Oh, God, it was so good. I just started a revival.
I need to read that one again because I don't. I know I read it like right after it came out, and it shows up on a lot of people's like weirdest and most disturbing Stephen King lists. But I don't remember much about it at all. It's one of those books that I like consumed, like I speed read, because we stand Stephen King on this podcast.
Yes.
If you want to follow me online, you can do that on Instagram at DB Hensley. I'm not going to lie. I just keep forgetting that we have a podcast Instagram. I keep forgetting to add like our drink photos and stuff like that and promote new episodes. So, maybe after like we return from hiatus, I'll try to get back into being better about that with whatever next show we do. But yeah, so you can follow me at DB Hensley on Instagram. If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us. To see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming, you can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Somewhere across the sea, they're saying the title even more times.